How's it going, everyone? This is Nick from Comic Culture. It is another episode of Nick at Night here. Got a stack of books from September 15th, 2021. We are going to go over them, see what I thought about them in a non-spoilery way. Stay tuned. So welcome back to Nick at Night, guys. So we're going to go over the books we picked up September 15th. And we're going to talk about them. Not going to spoil anything, really. Going to talk about the high-level stuff, what I thought about the storyline, what I thought about the art. I'm going to talk about them at a high level, but I'm not going to spoil any major plot points. So if you haven't read these books yet, you should get a good idea of what the book is about, but nothing too spoilery, right? So as always, we are going to start with a big two. We're going to start in Marvel with Trials of Magneto, issue number 2. So this is from Williams and Warnick, right? So this is not like a Duggan, this is not a Hickman book or anything like that. So if you're into the X-Men stuff, Trials of Magneto might be up your alley, especially if you're just picking up everything. But I'm coming off of Hoxpox. Haven't read the other X-Men stuff, don't really follow the other X books at all. So I just kind of jumped right into this one. I started reading Planet Sized. I started reading the new X-Men number 1 and X-Men number 2. Somewhat enjoyed those, and I'm jumping into this one, so I have that kind of a frame of mind. So I think I have the same critique of this book that I did with issue number 1, or maybe how I think about issue number 1 right now, maybe not after I read it the first time, but I feel like everyone is slightly different than the way they were in Hoxpox, and maybe they've just kind of evolved over time here, but Magneto has completely gone off the rails here. So he's essentially, it's the trial of Magneto. The other cover showed the Scarlet Witch murdered, and so they're kind of pinning this on him right now. They got the different teams involved to kind of investigate this murder. They have essentially arrested Magneto for the murder of the Scarlet Witch, and so in this issue here, we kind of have different people coming in to pay their condolences, right? And to retrieve the body. So we have the Avengers with Vision entering Krakoa to kind of, go get her body and things like that. So you have some really cool interactions between the Avenger characters and the different mutants on Krakoa right now. So a couple different touching scenes in here. We have some confrontation, and, Magneto is kind of acting really, really, really out of character, in my opinion. So not too sure if we were building up to this in the other X-Men books and X-Men, the main run, the Hickman run, but didn't really expect this to be like this. So I think that we're going to learn some pretty shocking things about Magneto, maybe his plan, maybe if he knew what was going on, who's really at fault here, because I don't think it's Magneto. I think it's somebody else. So we're gonna kind of figure it out, I think, as we go, obviously. And at the end, we get a huge reveal at the end too, so it kind of poses a lot more questions, and so it doesn't really answer a whole lot, but it was kind of cool to see the Avengers going to Krakoa and hang out with some of the X-Men and some of the mutants and whatnot, so that was kind of fun. But we're going to keep reading it, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to keep riding the X-Men train and just hope for the best. So Trials of Magneto, if you're reading all the X books, I think you just have to read it, because it's going to be a cool little event that I'm sure is going to spin off into something else. So that was the only Marvel book that I read. So going into DC, I have a few different DC books here. We're going to start off with Harley Quinn's Eat Bang Kill Tour. So this book was okay. It was a little bit fun. If you absolutely love the animated series, if you love the Harley Quinn animated series, I would recommend picking this up. If you watched it and you were like, I don't know, maybe you should try it just to kind of see what this book is about. Feel the vibe of the book. It's like you're watching the show as you read this. The animation's very similar. The way the characters are reacting and acting to each other, extremely similar. So this picks up with Harley and Ivy essentially escaping, kind of getting married. They're trying to go on their honeymoon, but they're being chased by Gordon and everything. So it's kind of picking up right from there. So it does do a decent job of recapping the animated series in the first few pages. So if you haven't watched the show, you can get an idea of what that was all about in these pages. So, that was fun for them to do. But you get an idea of how complicated their relationship is going to be. Ivy's fighting some demons right now. She isn't quite sure if she's ready for this yet, but she's kind of impulsive like Harley. So they just kind of jumped into this whole thing, right? And so then it kind of gives you a hint of where they're going from there. So it kind of sets it up. And, they think it's going to just be Happy Street from here on out. But Gordon's still tracking them down. So animation's interesting. If you like the show, I think you're going to like this. Same with the writing and everything. So if you love the show, pick it up. If you watched it, didn't like it, I'd skip it. Nothing revolutionary in that book's going on right now. So not too sure if I'm going to keep picking it up. I like the show, but maybe not enough to have a whole comic book dedicated to it and spend $4 a month on a book about it. All right, going over to I Am Batman from Ridley. So this was a fairly highly anticipated book, I would say. We've had a couple different Future State books out and whatnot kind of teasing this. And so now we get our first full issue about Jace kind of taking over the mantle of Batman, right? Kind of living in his shadow. His father, Lucius, is still around doing whatever he's doing right now. But this is really the story of his first night out as Batman and how he kind of, thinks how Batman should operate. He kind of makes a little critique in this book about how Batman has probably studied every inch of every building, so he understands the escape routes and the height of every building and the distance and all these things. So he has all these ideas in his head about how to get through different situations he might encounter. His approach is more ground level, more street level. So he's going to approach it like that to begin with. So I don't know how realistic that is in a world where the magistrate's everywhere and it's practically kill on sight. So he decides to kind of navigate the city in a more visible way, which I think would be a pretty bad idea. I kind of like the internal dialogue that he has about, how he should operate and whatnot. And he gets into some minor altercations here and there. I would say the art is really, really good in this book too. We get a nice little ending here with a little bit of a tease about where it might head. There's some questions about some masks that have been murdered and whatnot. And so, he's going to be kind of diving into that and trying to figure out what's going on there. But, if you're interested in a new Batman and kind of figuring out, how a new Batman would take over and what the first night would look like, maybe pick it up and try it out. I don't really know the character that well. I read a little bit of the Future State stuff, but I didn't pay too much attention to him. So I would say that the book is actually drawn really well. I think it looks really great. The character we don't know a whole lot about. I'm not too invested in his alter ego, which is his real, the real character, Jace Fox. But we'll see. We might read it for a couple more issues and see where it goes. But I Am Batman, pretty decent. Pretty decent. Not extraordinary. It's kind of like a hot seat book almost, but I'll give it another issue because it's something new. All right, last DC book, we have The Joker. This is tying into March. So I think Cerebros has a really good way of describing this book, which is, I think we all kind of anticipated this book to be a limited series, maybe 5 issues, something like that. And then we heard that it was going on for about 14, and we're on issue 7. So it's drawn really well, and every issue I think is interesting. We have some Jim Gordon stuff in here, and he's truly a brilliant detective just because of all the time on the force that he's had. And so he's able to kind of deduce things pretty quickly and understand people's motives and kind of getting out of sticky situations. So I do like that about this book. And I do like the little ancillary characters in here. Oracle and whatnot are kind of in the background trying to, help him out. And so we do get kind of a back and forth between Jim Gordon, his current situation, and Oracle and the different Batgirls in Gotham still. They're kind of spying on this woman who set Gordon on this mission to begin with to kill the Joker. And she's acting pretty strange. And we had a little bit of a tease a couple issues ago about who she might be working for and how much in danger these the girls are going to be in here soon. And they don't even really realize it. So we do get a little bit of a follow through with that little tease that happened toward the end. We get a pretty close to home altercation, and Cassandra Cain comes in and just kicks ass. So I absolutely love that. The art is really phenomenal in this book. I do really like that from March. We get some Gordon cleverness in here about, reading the motives of certain people. And we get a cool We get a cool vengeance appearance in this book as well. So nothing too spoilery. Nothing really huge happens in this book. A lot of dialogue, a lot of a few little fights here and there, and we get some killer art. So another pretty decent issue of Joker. So some of the issues have been kind of like throwaway. This one's close to it, but we get some pretty interesting little battles at least. So we're continuing on. I don't think it's the best issue of Joker, and it's definitely not the worst issue of Joker so far. So if you're thinking about Joker number 7 and you've read the other ones, you should probably pick this one up. And we'll keep going until the end of it, which I think is issue 14. All right, we're going to get into the indies now. We have a few of those. This is Maria Levitt's Porcelain issue number 2. So I picked this one up because I thought the art and the solicitation were at least interesting. I thought we were going to get this cool, like, existential trapped in some kind of a weird environment kind of a book, and like a labyrinth kind of a thing. And we get a girl here that kind of goes off path and gets trapped in this dollhouse who's just looking for victims. And the woman who's running the dollhouse, she turns the victims into porcelain dolls forever. So they're kind of trapped in here. But so our girl gets lured into the trap, and she's trying to navigate the different rooms that are ever changing and things like that. And she comes across an ally who's just been able to survive this whole time. So he kind of takes her in to kind of help her get through this whole thing, and trying to teach her the ropes of how confusing and inevitable and forever this situation is. So, it's just basically them trying to understand each other and trying to understand, the situation that they're in, and trying to develop an escape plan, even though from what we've seen so far, escape is impossible. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to do. One critique I do have about this book is all about ever-changing environments. If you remember a thing like Harry Potter, or think of a movie where the environment's constantly changing, and it's exchanging in like an abstract kind of way. So imagine if they did, like the Doctor Strange movie where the different buildings were flipping around, or Inception or something like that, or Harry Potter with the staircases and things just moving constantly. Trying to do that in a panel format, and you're trying to kind of trace where the movements are from panel to panel, and they don't really give you a whole lot, so you don't quite remember, or you don't really understand the volume of change happening in each room. So I would say that that's a little bit unfortunate in this book, and it's hard to keep track of. The other one is every issue, there's only 2 so far, but each issue has ended very abruptly. So it almost feels like this book was like a trade, was meant to come out as a trade first, because every ending has been very, very abrupt, and it doesn't the pacing of it doesn't march out right for floppies, for single issues. So it's interesting. The art's pretty fun. I'll give you a little taste of the art in here. And again, it's just weird and abstract. So there's a little bit of a taste of the art that you might encounter in this book. So they're just trying to figure out what this world is and how they can escape it. But, everything we know so far says that there's no way of getting out of here, but they're going to keep trying. And I'm not too sure if I'm going to keep picking it up. I don't even know how many issues it is. I thought it was going to be a little bit more fun than it has been so far. Porcelain number 2, it's from Ablaze. So if you're into those kinds of books, maybe you be into that one. Not sure. All right, moving over to Aftershock, we have Beyond the Breach number 3 from Ed Brierson. So this book has made a big left turn from the issue 1, which I fairly enjoyed. It was interesting. It had a great cliffhanger, and it kind of made me want to read some more, right? So issue number 2 really threw me off. Issue 3 kind of pulled it back a little bit and did a little bit more to explain why things are the way they are. So really we have these like 2 dimensions layering on top of each other. We have this really weird, like bounty hunter, super sophisticated, like in the future, like Mad Max-ish almost kind of a thing, where there's like monsters and alien type creatures and things like that. We have that dimension kind of just fallen on top of Earth, and it's kind of destroyed wherever it's landed. Mass casualties everywhere. The whole civilization's falling apart. And so you have this main character, this woman who rescued a little boy, and they team up with one of the heroes from this other dimension, and he's just trying to figure out what happened. And so is she, so they kind of team up, and they run into some people on both sides, from Earth and from his other dimension. That caused a little trouble, so they have to kind of figure that out. So, the art in this one is actually not bad at all. It kind of reminds me of like a Walking Dead. I feel like the detail is actually pretty good. I'm going to flash a page here that doesn't really have too much on it. But you can get an idea of what the art style is like. So there's a little bit of detail in here, and I kind of appreciate that. Character design is really, really nice. The shadowing and whatnot is good. Some of the dialogue and some of the responses to the situation I thought were a little bit off here and there. And this main hero character from the other dimension is kind of weird and dry, but he's still helpful. And so he's really like honorable, and he's just trying to kind of he's kind of like the Kanto of his area. Everyone in his place was treated really bad, so he was the one that decided to come out, kind of go out and stop the tyranny, you know. And then this whole like merger of dimensions happens, and so he's just trying to figure all this out too. We get a confusing ending right here. There's a really sad thing that happens towards the end, and we don't exactly know how it happened or why it happened or who's responsible or who these people are. And so I'm sure we're going to find out in the next issue, but you know, I think it suffers from the same thing that Oblivion Song suffers from, which is just these two worlds that are kind of overlapping are just so different. The art style is just so different. It's just kind of hard to connect with the other side. And, you know, I kind of fell off of Oblivion Song around issue 20 or something like that. I don't know how long I'm going to keep reading on this one, but I feel like I have to keep reading it because it's Ed Brierson. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And this issue was better than issue 2. Not as good as issue 3. So I think or issue 1 rather. So I think we're going to keep reading it and just kind of see where it goes. But I had higher hopes for that series in general. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Another Aftershock book, Campese, The Dragon Incident. This is James Patrick and Marco Licati. So this book was a pretty interesting premise. Basically, you have an Earth-type planet where dragons exist. They used to battle, I don't know how many years ago, hundreds of years ago, perhaps. And so there has been this kind of peace that has fallen over between the two species. So we have this man who's kind of working for like the mob, for lack of a better word. And he's kind of like the peacekeeper. He's the guy that goes around and takes care of people when they start getting out of line. But he's also got this real sensitive side because he's like a native to the area. He just knows tons and tons of people. Everyone respects him. And so, you know, he's kind of the muscle of this gangster, right? This gang. So when the dragon kind of comes to town looking to terrorize it, has a bunch of demands and whatnot, Sonny's he's actually sent to kind of confront this dragon, and he wants to confront this dragon. So we do learn a little bit about the dragon's motivation, why he's terrorizing the place, why he's burning up the buildings and whatnot. And we have kind of the demands on both sides. We have, I think the main character's name is Sonny on here, but I could be wrong. We have him approaching the dragon saying, this is my town. I'm going to kick your ass if you don't get out of here. And not like he really could, but that's just the way he's been handling situations up until this point. And then we have the dragon basically going back at him and saying, you're just a little puny man. I will set you on fire in a second. Get the hell out of here. So, you know, so we have these two guys having a cool little dialogue. And that was a really interesting moment in this book here. So we do get a plan of where we are going in this book. We have an agreement that these two characters make. I'll do this for you if you do this for me, kind of a thing. And then we get a little bit more backstory on our main character and kind of where he came from and some of the allies and some of the people that are not so allies that he interacts with. So I'll give you a little page here, just give you an idea of the art. And maybe this is where I'm getting my background inspiration from. It's like a little purple, a little yellowish, a little white thrown into there. So maybe that's where I'm getting my background coloring inspiration from, because I read this book and books like Layla Starr, because I think the coloring is very reminiscent of Layla Starr, the Many Deaths of Layla Starr, if you're into that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's not a bad book. It's probably one of my favorite Aftershock books so far. So yeah, Campese, The Dragon Incident, not a bad read. If you enjoyed the first one, you'll really enjoy the second one, I think. And I think a lot of people missed out on issue number 1 and maybe went back and got it. So keep it going so far. I would recommend it. All right. Another book that we're going into Image now. A book that I was really looking forward to because I loved issue number 1 and number 2, and I had no idea about the other volumes that may have come out prior, but was ManEaters, The Cursed, issue number 3. It's got that cool, like, Girl Scout homage kind of look to it. They got the little witch's hat and the sashes and the badges and everything. So what I didn't realize was this, and this is from Chelsea Kane. What I didn't realize about this book was it's a fake, like, witches, like a teenager kind of a magazine that you would see at the grocery store. The entire issue is a fake magazine. There's no, here, I mean, like, you think you're looking at an ad from inside a comic book. No, there's nothing to spoil. There's no story. There's no nothing. It's just one gigantic ad, and it's all themed as if it was a teenage girl witch magazine that you'd find at the grocery store. So there's tons of ads in here that are pretty interesting. Lots of like questions to the editor and things like that. And then at the bottom, instead of saying like, thank you, it would be like, Hail Satan, stuff like that. Instead of like Girl Scout cookies, they're selling, menstrual products, right? So it's like, hey, we get all kinds of stuff in here. So it's just kind of funny. It's, it was interesting. What kind of made me upset about this is I like the composition of this. I like how they put it together. I like the layout and everything. I wish it didn't replace the regular issue, though. I wish it may have come out, if this is a monthly book, which I think it is, I wish it just would have come out in between issues instead of replacing an issue, because now I got to wait another month or 2 weeks or a month or whatever it is to get continuation of the story, which I really enjoyed. And so these little novelty issues like this are fun, but I don't want a novelty issue to replace the main issue. That's my only critique on this book. But if you've been picking up ManEaters The Cursed, you'll probably be disappointed in issue number 3 beyond, but you're going to get a cool novelty issue. So, I'll kind of leave it at that. That's one thing to think about. A little bit disappointed, but it's like a silver lining at the same time. So that's what you get. Last book, Primordial #1, Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino, Dave Stewart. We're all looking forward to this book, I think. Majority of the people picked it up because the creative team is insane. It's got like a lot of cool vibes of like Department of Truth. I would argue that Sorrentino and Martin Simmons have similar art styles. They're not the same, of course, but I would say that if you had to put them on a spectrum, they're probably more closer together than they are farther apart compared to other artists. So we did get a cool tease of this book in another book that came out. I cannot remember for the life of me which book it was, but it was a cool tease. It may have been like a Homesick Pilot issue or something like that. I cannot remember, but we got like the first couple pages of the book, and obviously those pages are in here and then they're kind of blown out. But what we essentially have is we have the U.S. space program, we have the USSR space program, set back during the space race, the 1960s, something like that, 61. And we have both those space agencies that they send their respected animals up. U.S. sends a couple monkeys up there, or USSR does. We send a couple monkeys up there, or they send a dog up there, something like that. And then both of those missions were failures. We kind of got news reports that, hey, yeah, nothing really happened, or hey, some catastrophic event happened. We lost the animals. It kind of sucks. Both sides said the same thing, and we're going to kind of dissolve this space program. And so that was kind of what the assumption was to the public, because that's the story we were told. Well, our main character here kind of hears or witnesses or sees evidence of the fact that that's not really the case. There was stuff that was found. These animals weren't destroyed. They may have encountered something, and both agencies encountered it, and now both agencies are covering up some gigantic secret. So you get a little bit of like Department of Truth-ish kind of vibes in there too, which is really kind of cool because we're right in the middle of that whole run. And the art's killer. So Andrea Sorrentino is doing the same thing that he always does. It reminds me of like a Gideon Falls kind of art style. So it's that real scratchy Sorrentino look, but it's also got like that crazy, I'll show you this panel real quick. It's got this like crazy overlapping, like geometry inspired panels right here. So we got a lot of that kind of stuff too. So if you enjoy Gideon Falls and how that looked, it's the same thing in this book right here. Then you get the cool Jeff Lemire things on top of it. So yeah, it's kind of uncovering the truth of the different space agencies. Different departments are trying to cover it up. What does it mean? And then towards the end, you get a little bit of a hint about what actually happened to the animals. And so I'm assuming we're going to be exploring all these things in the future issues. So I'm really looking forward to it. So if you're excited about Primordial, I think you're going to really like it because I loved it too. So that was probably probably the pick of the week. So as always, we're going to go through, and I'm going to give you a recommendation if you only had to pick up 2 or 3 or 4 books, what I would have picked up if I had to kind of do it over again. Primordial, for sure. I would have picked up Primordial because it was really interesting. As I go through, I would say Trials of Magneto, just because people might not be acting the way that I expect them to act, but I still had a lot of fun with the issue, and there's a lot of cool questions that kind of come up. And I'm kind of into that world right now because I haven't been burned out on that just yet. I would say that Joker is probably another decent pickup just because it's just a continuation, and we get a lot of cool little battles in here. I'm almost more interested in what's going on back at Gotham with the Bat family than I am with Gordon right now, because Gordon's just kind of hanging out talking to like other random people from in France and Paris and whatnot. And the Batgirls are kind of in the thick of it, trying to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And then I would probably say Camp Easy, issue number 2. I think it's a really good, solid issue. It doesn't suffer from that sophomore slump that JT refers to all the time. And I think it does a good job of just being funny and having some drama and some action in here. And I like the art and I like the coloring. So I would recommend those 4 books. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys picked up, what your favorite books of the week are so far. And if you guys want me to write up a little thing about any of these books, let me know down in the comments, or I can talk more about anything that you want me to. Again, thank you for watching Nick at Night. Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification for future videos. I'll see you next time. See you in the comments.